I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I'm not even supposed to be here today! Oh, fuck you!
Come on, you want me to drive? You're supposed to be suicidal. Remember, I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Get in the car.
Fuck me in the ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for 2014's How to Train Your Dragon 2, the second entry in the How to Train Your Dragon film series, and the second review of this series we're doing. So, what is the plot of How to Train Your Dragon 2? Well, this film actually takes place 5 years after the first film, because it's been 5 years since Hiccup and Toothless had united dragons and Vikings on the island of Berk. Well, Astrid, Snotlow, and the rest of the gang are challenging each other to dragon races, which is the island's new favorite contact sport. So the now inseparable pair journey through the skies, they chart unmapped territories and explore new worlds. Then one of their adventures one day leads to the discovery of an ice cave as home to hundreds of wild dragons, and this mysterious dragon rider, the two find themselves at the center of battle to protect the peace. So now Hiccup and Toothless have to unite to stand for what they believe in, while recognizing that only together that they have the power to change the future of both men and dragons. So, as for my reaction to the film, you all know that I like the first one, but I don't really regard it as one of DreamWorks' top tier films. Now though, with that being said, this one, on the other hand, I can definitely call this among DreamWorks' top tier films. Because this one is easily a massive improvement over the first one in every way. It's the kind of film I do in a way wish we had with the first one here. This one I feel like fixes all the flaws of the original and improves the problems I did have with the original, and actually even goes very mature and adult for a sequel to a film that was aimed for all ages. The first one was kind of in a way more of the kids' film that even adults could enjoy. This one is much more aimed for an older crowd. Because here's the thing. This film and the first film came out 4 years apart. So it was like DreamWorks had recognized that the kids who saw the first one at first came out had already in a way become teenagers by this point, so they needed to go more mature with this one. And here's the thing, like when they were making this film, the filmmakers had cited The Empire Strikes Back as one of its main inspirations. Since why this in a way is kind of The Empire Strikes Back of the trilogy. So, how was this film made? So, in April 2010, around the time the first one was performing in theaters, a sequel had been announced. Dean DeBlois, the director of the first film, had begun drafting an outline in February 2010, and had agreed to return to direct the second film on the condition that he would be allowed to turn the film series into a trilogy. So, for this film, he cited Empire Strikes Back and the Studio Ghibli film My Neighbor Totoro for his main inspirations. The expanded scope of The Empire Strikes Back was also influential. DeBlois and his creative team visited Norway and Svalbard to look for inspirations for the setting, and John Powell, the composer of the first film, returned to score this film as well. And the entire voice cast from the first film also returned, and of course, our newest characters, Drago and Valka, ended up being voiced by Cate Blanchett and Digimon Hounsou. So, and of course, How to Train Your Dragon 2 is DreamWorks' first film to use multi-core processing and the studio's new animation and lighting software. And then, after the movie was shot and advertised, from July 2013 to all the way to its release, How to Train Your Dragon 2 would premiere at the 2014 Cannes Film Festival on May 16, 2014, and was released in the United States to the public the next month on June 13, 2014. And, like the first one, this also got critical acclaim, and it was also a success at the box office. The critics loved the animation, the voice acting, the screenplay, the musical score, the action sequences, and the emotional depth and darker tone compared to the first film. And it did gross, and I did say box office success because it did make over $621 million worldwide, likely because it got spared overseas, but domestically it did not make as much as the first one, because the first one made $217 million domestically. This one, though, made over $177 million domestically, because it had competition. There was 22 Jump Street, which was also another good sequel, released the same month, the same weekend as this film. But then, of course, I think within the next week or so, or 2 weeks, then he had fucking Age of Extinction. Somehow that made $1 billion, while this only made $621 million, and I don't fucking know why. Because this should have made $1 billion in fucking stead. Not Transformers 4, which sucked ass. But it was the 12th highest grossing film in 2014. And it did win the Golden Globe Award for Best Animated Feature. It was nominated for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars, but the Oscars, it lost to Big Hero 6, but I feel like this should have won it instead. Because I thought this one was honestly better than Big Hero 6, in kind of a lot of ways. So, what made How to Train Your Dragon 2 even better than the first one? So, it follows the common rule of sequels. Make everything bigger. And that's not always enough to justify a series, though. It actually leads, sometimes it will lead the franchise into disaster, but this film actually lives up to the potential and the promise. And it provides the most breathtaking action and impressive visuals of the series, and expands the universe and gives huge room for nice warmth beneath the bombast. And the studio really does puts aside the broader gags and speed pacing, and that they're often known for some of their majority of their stuff, and they settle down for storytelling and remind us why animated movies can be terrifically appealing. And How to Train Your Dragon 2 really gives out a great sequel and does all that really well. And the plot is definitely heightened to a very epic installment, to the point where this actually feels like an epic film. This doesn't feel like just an animated film. It has this cool throwaway of cool effects, battle sequences, and humor, but it's really smart to keep on following the roots and settle on the characterization. Of course, Hiccup's new life with his dragon and tribe ever since the events of the first film, and prevent it from being too much of a spinning showcase. And the story really embeds itself with inspired emotions, especially such as with the Icy Dragon Cave, once you get the character of Valka. And you also get a developing relationship between Hiccup and his long-lost mother, who, in the first one, we were believed to have been dead, but once you get to this movie, you found out she was alive all this time. It was actually in hiding among several other dragons, because Hiccup was not the only one to see dragons as actually not bad. His mother did all along, in fact, and even saw a little bit of her spirit in him as a baby, when the village was still under attack. But of course, then Stoic provoked the dragon, and that got Valka snatched, and that was what led to believe had been dead all this time. But more on that later. And yet the quieter moments where you let the disconnected family reunite once they do reunite, and that really makes it endearing right here. And also, you get to explore more places beyond the Isle of Berk, and also I like that they actually let several years pass by and make the young Vikings you saw in the first film actually grow more mature. And depicting their maturity is very clever. Whether you got Snot Fish Legs competing for Rough Nut, or especially with their comic relief getting a bit way out of hand, though. And the dragon species definitely do give really great details, especially when it comes to the plot. And also, it's a rich universe that really makes the journey bigger. Right here, you can see DreamWorks really came so far to make this even more epic movie than the original, with the top-notch visuals, our characters growing older, John Powell's even more epic score, and they still have the spirit of the original movie. In a way, and these characters, once again, these characters feel so real. They've got real emotions. And these actions that our main heroes even take or even go through have real consequences, and you feel like you're a part of the world. And that's also what made the original one work, and that still remains here as well. And of course, the humor, the humor's not as present. The humor's not really all that present in this one, but It's still there at times when it actually needs to. Only when it needs to be there. So yeah, the moments are still there, and you got heavy emotional moments packed for the movie. So, how do we start off the film? Well, we start off like 5 years after the villagers of Burke and the dragons have made peace. Like Hiccup even narrates this like it's been 5 years since the events of the first film, and well, the sheep are still being away hunted by the dragons, but they're not being hunted for food now. They're being hunted because it's part of this new game that is now on the island Burke called Dragon Races. There, and of course, like that goes on, and now Hiccup's classmates from the original, they're often the top competitors of the Dragon Races, while Hiccup's not at the races. Like usually Hiccup and Toothless throughout this film are often busy exploring, checking out unexplored lands, and Hiccup's father Stoic is pressuring him to succeed as chieftain, but Hiccup doesn't know if he's ready for that or not. I mean, like, you know where this is kind of going to go. Like, that's where you can tell this is going to be a much more mature sequel. Like, one of the best things of the first one was the music. And I like that John Powell really tops the original score with this one, especially with the more mature music, and that really sweeps you away. And it's really not just a movie for children. The first one wasn't just a movie for children either. It was kind of more of an all ages film, but you could tell it was still somewhat of a kid's film at times. But this one actually feels like it's actually now aimed for the much more older fans of the first one that have kind of like started to get older as the 4 years had progress between that film and this film. It's got the values and ideals that resonate not just as a lesson for them, but something relatable for adults as well. Like the friendship between Hiccup and Toothless is even more great in this one. Like you could tell they've really grown since the first film. And this is a film you can watch multiple times and even see the details with the backgrounds and the dragons messing with one another. And also you find out that the residents of Burke aren't the only ones that gain mastery with dragons. And it reveals some more people that opens up space for more story and more continuation as well. And every aspect of the original film actually does get improved on. Like even some of the more weaker elements of the original that did somewhat bug me in a way. Like they fixed some of the problems with the original movie. They actually made quite a few of the characters that were kind of missing some development a little more better. Like especially with Astrid, like they definitely fixed Astrid in this movie as well. The sheer cinematography, and the thorough story, the well-written characters, the breathtaking scenes. So, now, that being said, eventually while Hiccup and Toothless are testing out their new gear, then Astrid eventually joins them, and you find out Toothless and Astrid's dragon are also pals, or aka Stormfly. That's Astrid's dragon's name, and you kind of find out that Hiccup is now is kind of too worried about becoming the new chief as well. He kind of feels like he's not ready to become chief yet. And then eventually the two go and investigate this burnt forest, but then Eret and these dragon trappers ambush them. And they work for our big bad of the movie called Draco Bloodfist, who is this warlord that plots to enslave dragons into becoming soldiers and killers for his little army. Right there. So you actually now know who the bad guy is, and well, at first this guy already seems like a villain, but you are about to meet him. You don't meet him just yet. But when you do meet him, you can see this guy is legit. This guy really means business once you do meet him. So Hiccup and Astrid, they go back to Burke to warn Stoic about Draco. Then of course, Stoic knows Draco, and he knows they have to get ready for battle. So he fortifies Burke to prepare for battle. And he finds out that he had met Draco at a gathering. And Draco offered protection from dragons if they wanted to serve him. But he was denied, and so he had his dragons attack them. And Stoic was the only one who survived. So in a way, you see more Stoic's past as well. Another thing, you get to explore a little more Stoic and why he seemed a little bit hard and tough in the first film. Is because of everything he went through and all these flashbacks. Almost being attacked at this gathering, and almost losing Valka, and almost thought Valka had died all these years. This stuff really toughened Stoic. So you get to learn a little more about Stoic in this film as well. But Hiccup refuses to accept the inevitable war, and he goes to search for Draco to try to convince him to change his mind and call off the attack, thinking that he can resolve peace between them. even despite Stoich's warnings. But while on their way there, they find this dragon rider that is Hiccup's long-lost mother, Valka, who we all know, like, we find out, like, a little bit more about, like, she was briefly mentioned in the first one with this helmet that Stoich had given Hiccup, but now we actually do get to see her in this movie. Like, it turns out she never died, she was still alive, and, like, how she was presumed dead was she got taken away by a dragon during a raid, and everyone thought she had been eaten around that time. And you find out, like Hiccup was not the only one that tried to bring peace between the dragons. Like, it turns out, like, Valka actually also knew as a good in the dragons and could not bring herself to slay dragons. She tried to even talk in the village into not slaying them, but none of the villagers believed her either. And of course, and she saw that Hiccup already had that spirit when he was already born. And that was the stuff I was talking about at the beginning of this review. And now, like, she had never died this whole time. It turns out she had actually gone in hiding with some dragons that she had rescued from Drago and brought them to an island that's formed out of ice by a massive Aloha ice-breathing dragon called the Bewilderbeast. And that can control smaller dragons with hypnotic sound waves. Then, of course, just around that time, Stoich and Gober, they track Hiccup to the nest, and right here, and of course, then Hiccup reveals to Stoich that Valka was alive, and so Stoich is really stunned and surprised to see that she's still alive. But at first, Valka thinks that Stoich's gonna jump to tough conclusions, but Stoich is just speechless, and he doesn't, and they happily reunite. So it's definitely nice. So it is nice that at least Stoich does get to reunite with Valka again in the brief moments for a little while. And so far, things actually do seem like they're going happy. Like Stoich's now found his wife again, and actually has now found is now starting to find a bit of happiness again. And of course, like after almost losing her these years, and almost thinking that she had died all those years, like you can see how relieved he is in his eyes to see that Valka was alive this whole time, and now he can finally reunite with her again. And can actually finally find some happiness with her again. And so meanwhile, Astrid and the other riders, they find Eretz and they force him to lead him to Drago, but Drago captures them. But then, of course, then Drago eventually learns of Burke and the dragons through the riders. So he directs his armada to go find the dragon's nest and attack it. And of course, he decides to betray Eret and try to execute him, but Stormfly saves him, and so Eret, in gratitude, decides to help the others escape and actually join them. So when it comes to the animation, the characterization of the animation is very well done. It's an example of amazing art, where you see Hiccup's inventions he wears on his armor, like the handy gliders or the pouch, like the more equipment he's kind of gained ever since that first film, and this blade that has shoots of fire, and of course this Whizzle Black Gas trigger. And of course, like the side characters, even though they get less focused, but they're definitely better written here this time around. And the film really makes illustrated the film does well in portraying the love between Stoich and Valka, which, while even though they do get to reunite, the happy stuff doesn't last for long, but I'm not going to mention that yet. Even though, like, now when it comes to some of the other side characters, like the riders, some of the humor between them, like, especially kind of like the subplot of Fish Lace and Snotlouts, that stuff really wasn't too funny, but that stuff wasn't really annoying. Like, I mean, their humor wasn't, like, forced, and at least their humor and their subplot was only done when it needed to be. Like, and of course, and this movie does well, and the movie, like, I did not see this in 3D, but you could tell the 3D banner would definitely feel earned for a movie like this, and of course, you still got the pretty flying scenes, and the movie takes full advantage of that well. You even have a more mythological story than the first one. The script really does go deep into the dragon myths. And of course, like now, when it comes to the villain's motives, on paper, this would seem silly. But when the movie does it, about how this movie did it, this movie actually does the whole villain motives really well, and it really does well in making his villain's motives actually that would feel like a threat. Also, just as Valka and Stoic are reuniting and reconnecting, and things seem like they are going smooth, then sadly, that's about to get ruined because a battle rages at the nest between the dragon riders, and so Valka, her dragons, and Drago's armada are all now at war now, and so Drago unveils his Bewildered Beast to confront the Alpha. So his Bewildered Beast kills the Alpha and becomes a new Alpha, as now able to control all dragons, and so Hiccup then tries to plead with Draco to cease the violence, and tries to plead to stop the war, but Draco obviously is long beyond redemption at this point, and he refuses because his family had died from dragon attacks in his childhood, and it maintained his desire to conquer the world. So in kind of a way, he's kind of like he's kind of like somewhat darker version of either Stoic or Hiccup in a way. Where, imagine if either one of them did not try to see the good in the dragons, or was not convinced by a surviving family member that there actually was good in the dragons in a way. Imagine either one of those timelines where either one of those characters. Like, imagine a timeline where if Hiccup actually did kill the Night Fury, or actually did kill Toothless and did not set him free. Or imagine if Stoic didn't realize any of his actions in a way. That's kind of Draco. That's kind of Drago. In a way. Did I say Draco? I meant Drago. Either one of those timelines, that character is Drago. Where he got too consumed by his hate for dragons. He got too consumed by wanting to avenge his family's deaths. And so he wanted to conquer the world and make the dragons his army. And so and of course, now when it comes to the character Drago is legitimately a terrifying villain. This was a character who really meant business. This was a character that was a legitimate threat. This is a character you clearly did not want to encounter. And you knew very well that his plans were very deadly. Especially because he does this intimidating war cry that can immediately control a dragon and immediately go into his side, and he could command it to just about kill you. Anyway, even now, especially if it's your own. Because what I'm saying is because he has his Bewildered Beast hypnotize Toothless and tries to make him kill Hiccup, but sadly though, just as Stoic has rescued Valka, he sees that Hiccup is in danger, and he tries to, and immediately, the first thing he does is, just as Toothless is about to deliver the kill blow on Hiccup, Stoic then sacrifices himself and ends up taking the blast instead. And the thing is, you think he'd get up from something like this? No. Because, on the sad side of things, Stoic actually dies. He actually dies after that. And so Hiccup is obviously devastated and grieving by this, and so he yells at Toothless to leave. Whenever Toothless sees what he's done and tries to nudge Stoic awake, but Hiccup drives him away after he's released by the Bewildered Beast, and that's clearly what Draco wanted. Draco wanted that in a way, either Hiccup to die or maybe a close ally of his to sacrifice themselves for him, so that if Hiccup did survive, he would drive Toothless away, and then, of course, he would be able to control and take Toothless for his own and complete his army like that. So, that was clear. That was pretty much his plan, and so Drago takes control of their dragons, and of course, he rides Toothless to conquer Berk, and so the group is now stranded, and the group holds this Viking funeral for Stoic, and easily probably one of DreamWorks Animation's #1 saddest moment in my eyes is when they hold this Viking funeral for Stoic, and Goldberg gives the farewell speech, and they fire these fire arrows at the boat that Stoic's body is on, and they right there hold this Viking funeral for him, and right there, the scene gets even sadder when he feels lost out his father or his dragon, but Valka then gives him this advice or reminds him that his father believed he could unite humans and dragons, and so Hiccup gains his confidence back once again, and inspired, they decide to return to Berk on well, because their dragons have been taken captive, they return to work on baby dragons, because baby dragons are actually immune to the bewildered beast's influence. But just as that's happening, though, Draco has gotten to Burke, and he attacks the village, and he takes control of the rest of the tribe of the villagers' dragons. Hiccup, though, manages to convince Toothless that what happened was not his fault, and he frees Toothless from the bewildered beast's control. And so, Draco is furious by this, but Toothless knocks him off, and so they confront Draco before the bewildered beast encase them in ice, but Toothless shields Hiccup from that, and Toothless blasts away the ice and enters this glowing powered state, and so he's immune to the bewildered beast's control. Then Toothless challenges the bewildered beast and keeps shooting at the bewildered beast and breaks its control while over the other dragons to side with him, and so the free dragons are all now free, and they fire at the bewildered beast, and then Toothless fires this massive blast, and the bewildered beast's left tusk gets broken off. Right there. Now that's definitely, that's easily such an epic finale right there. Now, I mean, the finale of the first one was cool, but this is something else. Now just imagining this, then one man, one dragon, taking down this giant bewildered beast dragon and this intimidating dragon controller. And then, of course, managing to free all these other dragons he has, siding with them, and of course, being against their own kidnapper, getting the revenge on their kidnapper, and then breaking off the bewildered beast's tusk. And so, with that, the bewildered beast now knows it has no more control over the other dragons, and so the bewildered beast and Draco then retreat to sea. Although right there, I started to wonder if maybe Draco was going to come back for the third one, but obviously his voice actor was unable to, so they had to make a new villain. Which to be fair, I kind of wish he did come back, because I feel like his defeat wasn't really as much as the epic the finale was. One thing that could be fixed is maybe Draco kind of actually does get defeated in a way if they're not going to bring him back, because he didn't really seem like he died. He just retreated to sea and he just never comes back. That's really it. Wait, now, the voice acting of the movie is definitely great. Now, Jay Baruchel still brings the earnestness to Hiccup, especially with the character's new appearance. And Gerald Butler is still terrific as Stoic, and even lends more gravity to the character in this one, especially when you explore more of his past. Cate Blanchett really joins in and definitely gives a terrific amount of warmth to the role of Velka, and the rest of the cast in general do well enough to keep things very alive. And the filmmaking, the direction gives even better pacing, in a way. The first one already had great pacing, but this one is even better pacing. And also, it's easier to watch when you concentrate each scene, getting to know more of the characters, with or without any dialogue. And the flying scenes are still, once again, a tremendous ride, like they were in the first one. The film even builds upon its predecessor by doing one thing like most sequels sometimes don't really like to do. It's when you continue the story, it doesn't rehash the story of the first one like a lot of sequels do. It continues the story in a way that also could even stand on its own. The film it's not the first one, but it dives even deeper into the story in the world the first one had brought us. A great sequel really knows how to broaden the story mature as it really goes along. It's definitely what they do here, where you have Hiccup realizing that he had been naive and with the ideas he carries, and he realizes it is time for in a way to grow up. Dragon 2 really knows how to make that feel fresh. In the first one, it was Hiccup trying to find himself. And now he's still trying to do that here, but it's more of a desire to find his place in a grown-up world than be accepted for who he is. And now he can become the new chieftain. The transition between the Hiccup from the first movie to the Hiccup of this movie is so well done and very believable. And just as Hiccup has grown, the story grows with him, and by becoming darker with more mature with its themes, we deal with this terrific form of family that's in a way that's not seen in too many animated films. And also when you have diplomacy over war, it deals with complex issues that would make it easy to forget that this is really kind of both a kids and adults film about dragons in a way. So now we get on with how the movie ends, aka the finale. So in the aftermath of Hiccup winning that fight, the Vikings and dragons celebrate their victory, and of course, And Valka tells that Stoic would have been proud of him if he were here just as much as she is. And then, of course, the village elder that you all remember in the first one had chosen Hiccup to be the one for the final exam and not Astrid. The elder makes him the chieftain of Burke. And Valka decides that she's going to stay with her son. And obviously because he's going to need some other parent to still look after him because sadly Stoic is gone. And so the Dragons accept Toothless as the new alpha. So Burke, on the other hand, is undergoing repairs. And Hiccup feels confident that they're going to defend their way of life with the Dragons. And of course, like, the Dragon races are still back on. And Hiccup's now a part of them, actually. And of course, that's how How to Train Dragon 2 ends. It's not just a terrific end to the middle act of the series, but in a way, it actually was a good setup for what was going to be the final entry that we were going to be getting 5 years after this. Originally, like, ironically, we were supposed to be getting it 2 years after this movie, but obviously they knew that would not work in time, so it changed to 5 years. And honestly, I'm glad they released it in 2019, not 2016, because then it just would have probably been a rushed mess. So yeah, 2019 is a better way to do it. So yeah, it was a good setup for that film, and it's a terrific ending for this middle act, where Hiccup is now the chief, but there's still going to be a few more obstacles to come. But that's for another review, though. Now we get on with the bad qualities of the film. I would say, for bad qualities, I think this first bad quality, yeah, you're mentioning. What about the trailers ruin things for you, Don? Well, no, I wouldn't say the trailers ruin the movie, but there was a certain spoiler I wish was not in the trailers. Valka revealed to be alive. Yes, that's an amazing moment, but the problem, the trailers spoiled it. Like, that was a problem, and I wish they had not spoiled it in the trailers. The reveal, because I feel like the reveal of her being alive could have been a huge surprise if they had not did that, but if they had just kept her a secret, in a way, maybe they just did that. Maybe they just keep it a secret from us, and maybe they don't reveal it till the movie comes out. In a way, that could have been a huge shocker. It could have been even more epic. It could have been an even more epic moment, but nah. The marketing just had to ruin it, of course. Just had to do the marketing with that, and well, I didn't really care much for the character of Eret, nor the subplot with one of the annoying twins having a crush on him either. There just wasn't really much to do with this character, and I guess now that I mentioned the twins, I've just always found the twins the most annoying characters of Hiccup's allies, because all they really ever do is kind of just the same gag they've done since the first film. Either beat each other up or argue or fight, or they even sometimes in a ways make things worse for the game. A lot of times, and their own in general. Heck, apparently for the TV series, back in my Chlorophyll review in the chat wall, Declan Kearns had actually mentioned that apparently there were apparently some episodes of the TV series where they've almost gotten the game murdered in several episodes about them. So, almost got the game murdered. Almost got them murdered in several episodes about them. So that's nice to know. And of course, now, when it comes to Draco's defeat, it didn't really feel like a defeat, because the tusk gets blown off and they just escape to the water. And that's it. It's kind of like Dreamworks was originally planning for him to come back for the next movie, have him be the antagonist again, but the Jimo Honsu likely wasn't really available for the next one, so it's like for the third one, they kind of had to do a new villain for that one. And the new villain we got in the next film wasn't really that memorable either as this guy, because it's clear that new villain from the third one was clearly written for that character instead. But they changed it because the voice actor couldn't really come back. So I just feel like if they weren't going to bring Draco back, then they should have just they kind of should have really gotten a kill defeat in a way if he wasn't going to come back, not just really retreat into the water. Because I kind of wish he came back for for the third one. I'd like having him be the antagonist of the whole series. But other than those, I really still do enjoy How to Train Your Dragon 2, and this was the movie that made me a fan of the series. It took the flaws of the first one, and it reworked all of those beautifully well. And in fact, it's definitely a very epic sequel. And it's definitely, to me, Dreamworks' second best movie behind The Prince of Egypt. That's what I would say. If I did a Dreamworks ranking, I'd say number 1, Prince of Egypt, second place, this movie. In the end, I would definitely watch and buy How to Train Your Dragon 2 for your collection as well, because this is everything a sequel should totally be, and it succeeds at doing that well, and it's an example of a sequel that's even better than the original movie. Anyways, that's it for my view of How to Train Your Dragon 2, and if you're wondering how to rank How to Train Your Dragon 2, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you love the original film and want to see what's next, yeah, you should totally get on with watching and buying How to Train Your Dragon 2 for your collection without a doubt, because it's an example of a perfect sequel. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank How to Train Your Dragon 2, I'm going to give How to Train Your Dragon 2 a damn 10 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That wraps up my review for How to Train Your Dragon 2. Now, I want to know in the comments down below what you guys think about How to Train Your Dragon 2. I'll put this back on the shelf. And that leaves us with one more How to Train Your Dragon watch. And obviously, it's going to be for The Hidden World. The final, and what was supposed to be the final entry, what should have been the send-off to the series as a whole. But they did a remake. And until then, guys, that will be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, and don't forget to subscribe to Don G. Corleone.